the top. It's like,
Yeah,
oh man, look at me with this hammer.
but you didn't. But you didn't actually put it up with the prospect of the noise. You didn't have the sound effect in that clip. Hey, Church, can you
Yeah.
poke at Rumble to make sure our Rumble stream is working?
It should be. I just
It's
did the
it's
static
got
stream key thing.
it's just got a big angry exclamation point.
Mine has a check mark. Says you are live.
I mean,
Okay.
I've also got the that article about Greg Capullo returning to Marvel for Wolverine. The thing is that as much as it might be great to have a good artist, my question is:
The well is poisoned.
Are we gonna have good stories while we're at it?
No, because they're not going to undo plant terrorist, gay, narco state X-Men era.
Well, we don't know if they aren't. We only know that
No, they're
Krakoa is
not.
coming to an end because they can't wring any more money out of that stone.
I mean, they didn't really wring all that much money out of it. But hey, everybody, it's another fantastic gospel of comics.
Actually, your status asks a interesting question, Larry. It is 2024. This is our first show of the year.
I did change the status to its hashtag current year.
Yeah, it's current year now. What about
It's
all
always
the
current year.
problems that were current year last year?
Well, those weren't current year.
But they're still problems, though.
Right, but those are problems of the past that we can get rid of once we embrace the fact that it's current year.
But those problems are still here. They in fact continue to be current.
Right, but those problems are still here because we didn't embrace the fact that it's current year and we still embrace the thinking of the past.
But if we embrace the current year and then the year moves on, doesn't that mean we have now embraced the past?
No, because we abandoned the past because it's current year.
Oh, right. Because kill the past if you have to.
Well, no, you do have to.
Right.
So how's it going, Church? Santa let you out of the Santa mines?
Out of the Candy King gulag.
Well, I mean, they don't tell you this, but as soon as the Santa Mine tour is over, you start dying, and you stay dying for like at least a week.
Well, yeah, I mean, you also are reborn with the new year. Are you not? Is there not a flash of light?
No, you start dying in the new
fairy
year.
dust?
That's the thing. You start dying.
But so you are dying right now.
Yeah, well, not as badly as I was.
But you are continuing to die.
Also, the date is incorrect. It's the 7th, Larry, not the 5th.
Did they say the 5th somewhere?
Oh, it says
1/5/24, New Year.
Oh, well, shoot. Let me edit that.
We are super professional here, everybody.
I was thinking we're having some time issues, folks. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, these are all the fault of Conan the Timebarian.
Exactly, Conan the Timebarian. So here we are, and it's another gospel in the current year, as you do. So here's the real question, everybody. You want me to open up with my thick boy of content that I got right now, which isn't as thick as my usual boy of content?
Well, we're 4 minutes in. My question is, do you want to see if Ayrton's Potato is live?
I mean, I'm surprised it's been live when Church was either dying or in the Santa mines.
This is true, but I'm just saying, we can throw a rock in his direction, see if it hits.
I mean, we could. I mean, talking about role-playing game books, probably not going to be something he's going to circle around to.
I mean, sure, and unless we want to talk about our upcoming campaign that will one day happen with the Ultimate Wizard M1 Garandadov.
What the fuck were you guys doing while I wasn't here?
shows.
I don't know if you can call them that.
We
Based
made
on
them
what I'm
public.
hearing.
You can view them, Church.
Yes,
you
they're
have
still
the
public.
capacity.
I don't know that they should be.
What do you mean?
Look. I think it is very pertinent that we were absolute princes, and the most complicated experience we had was a guest.
Yes, and Commander Classified. We might bring him back. I don't know, on Canada Day or something.
I could have told you about that one. You guys could have asked.
I'll take the hit for not asking you on that one, because I didn't realize Commander Classified could get like that when he was drunk.
I didn't know it was Canada Day.
No, it wasn't Canada Day when he was on.
Oh, okay.
I was making a Canada Day joke. We could have him and what's his face from the Canadian Shield on.
Rick Piper?
Have the great debate.
Rick
Have him and Rick Piper on and talk about the virtues of Canada.
No, the best. Rick Piper and John Dillard on at the same time. Those are special days.
Those are special days. So, I have a big, thick book that I crowdfunded.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute. You paid for this?
I did, in fact, pay for Cowboy Bebop, the role-playing game.
I can't judge, because for a friend, I did pay for the Avatar: The Last Airbender role-playing game. So, okay.
And this game has listed on the back 3 publishers or corporate entities. Number 1, Sunrise, which is the rights holder for Cowboy Bebop.
I mean, yeah.
It has Mana Project Studio, which I guess did one of the animations, and Don't Panic Games. I'm guessing that Don't Panic Games is the one responsible for this. And I'm going to read the back of the book. The official tabletop role-playing game of one of the most beloved anime of all time. Set in the year 2071, this enthralling narrative orbits around a gang of bounty hunters in space, delving deep into unresolved issues from the past and exploring concepts such as existentialism, boredom, and loneliness. Get rich quickly, but be ready to face retribution, because that will be the real lesson.
Okay,
in this book, you will.
Before you dig further, I just want to point out the 3 flaws they've already started out at.
Mhm.
I'll yield on existentialism. You can explore some deep philosophy in role-playing games, right? But when one of your selling points is boredom,
you're exploring the concept of boredom, and I'll get to that.
I thought I was exploring the concept of being a badass space bounty hunter and/or space criminal and/or space cop.
Well, we will get to that. So, in this book, you will find original game system. Note, this is not an original. Embark on thrilling adventures with an innovative D6 dice-based game system. Note, this is not innovative. Devised to tackle the myriad of challenges your characters face. Custom bounty hunter creation. Shape your very own bounty hunter, crafting their past, present, and future as you carve a unique path through the solar system.
Wait,
Tools
so
for the
one character class and it's bounty hunter?
Yes.
So they've again already failed.
No. I'll get to that. Technically speaking, there's not a class. It's a classless system.
I'm just throwing out there that anyone who actually watched Cowboy Bebop knows the last episode of Cowboy Bebop, they were closing off the frontier and ending the bounty hunter system. So,
but you're gonna be existing in the time of the setting, so
of course.
And also it's a classless system, so you're not technically creating bounty hunters if you really want to think about it. Okay. Tools for the narrator. In brackets, big shot. Arm yourself with comprehensive resources to masterfully orchestrate events within the immersive world of Cowboy Bebop. Design tailor-made bounties using detailed archetypes. Planets and environments. Explore the planets and their landscapes in the Cowboy Bebop universe, immersing your characters in detailed surroundings. Bounty, Mothership, Monos, Zipcraft, and asteroid generators. Engage in endless possibilities with dynamic tables for generating bounties, customizing your motherships, revising mono and zipcraft, and navigating treacherous asteroid fields. Iconic character interactions. Interact and engage with the beloved main characters of the Cowboy Bebop series. Bring them to life within your own adventures and witness their vibrant personalities unfold.
Anyone
No.
actually running role-playing games will never do this.
Yep. Spaceship rules. Pilot your spaceships and delve into the rules that govern these interstellar vehicles. Game glossary. Acquaint yourself with the lingo and terminology of Cowboy Bebop, the role-playing game, through a detailed glossary to navigate the game with fluency. Astral Gate Map. Navigate the vast cosmos, which is just a solar system, with the aid of a meticulously crafted astral gate maps, plotting your course and exploring the interconnected web of celestial gateways. A blank character sheet. Organize your character statistics and journey with a comprehensive and customizable character sheet. Blank sessions sheet, a session sheet that serves as your guide to track clocks and tabs in progress seamlessly. Embark on an extraordinary journey into the Cowboy Bebop universe, where unforgettable characters and enthralling narratives await your discovery. The Cowboy Bebop role-playing game core book provides you with an expansive toolkit to fully immerse yourself in this iconic world, forging your own path in the solar system. So, we're going to get into two things in, casual amount of detail. So, Joe, what is the dumbest thing that is in every role-playing game book because there's a possibility someone picks it up who doesn't know what it is?
What is a role-playing game?
Correct. Now, this book has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages dedicated to it. Page 1.
Don't see you needing more than 2.
Well, it's because there's a lot of artwork in these pages. A role-playing game is a game where a group of people play one or more characters and through conversation and imagination create story together. The rules of an RPG adjudicate how, when, and to what extent each person can influence the imagined space. Then they talk about what you will experience, the foundations, which is the themes and tones of the setting, the mechanics.
So, Church, you're a building, right? If I go inside you and then you transform into your standing Zorg form, can I be crushed in your gears?
You got to pay $50 for that.
And last, but certainly least, they have a page dedicated to safety techniques.
Okay, throw it on the fire.
It is important.
Which safety techniques do they use? Do tell.
I'm going to read that. It is important that you all, as players, discuss the themes you want to include and things you'd prefer to avoid during each session.
Wait, it's important that you all as players. Yeah, no, that's the thing. I was working out the pauses, and that is a terrible fucking sentence.
Yeah, they could have eliminated a pause there by just saying y'all.
I mean, for one, yeah.
Lines and veils standardized by Ron Edwards can help you with this. A line is a hard limit. You can't go beyond this point. And a veil is where, you just kind of wave things off.
It's actually the less offensive version of a safety tool compared to the X card.
Yes. So I will give this game kudos for that.
It's just my thing is, I don't think it's a thing that necessarily should have been requiring a description with an author or anything. It should really just be, hey guys, play a game, have fun, don't be a cocksucker. Yeah,
but again, the fact that it,
well, I'm out,
was the least egregious.
Church, do you fellate? I was under the impression that you had a Mrs. Church and children's.
This is role-playing etiquette we're talking about here. I'm going to be the asshole.
So
no, asshole is okay.
now we're going to get into its innovative game design. The game is organized into sessions, which are similar to episodes of an anime or TV serial. You will need 1 to 2 hours to make a session. So, by intent,
That's a short game. Fuck.
that is a very short game. Each session is divided into 3 tabs. Each one relates to a particular section of your tale. So, basically, divide your game into a 3-act structure. To achieve their goals, bounty hunters.
Wait, are they actually saying that a full story should take 3 sessions?
No. They're saying each session should have 3 acts.
If each session should have 3 acts and is between 1 and 2 hours, that means that you are dividing your game into 15 minutes of prep, 15 minutes of Act 1, 15 minutes of Act 2, and 15 minutes of Act 3. That is not playable.
I agree, but let's go into the nuts here. To achieve their goals, bounty hunters take turns deciding how their character acts and determines their outcome with tests. Tests reward 2 game currencies. Hits, handled by the bounty hunter, who made the test, and shocks, handled by the big shot. Spending hits will bring the characters closer to their objectives, and spending shocks brings them closer to dangers.
Okay, I've seen that in some systems, but not specifically like this, but I've seen similar events.
Now they have character traits and memory. Each bounty hunter has control over the actions of their character, blah, blah, blah. They have traits describing how the character looks, acts, and does things, and a memory, a short sentence that broadly frames the character story is about. During a tab, a bounty hunter uses these traits to move the story forward, narrating what the group sees as though describing a TV series or a video game, and making tests to find out what happens.
It sounds very fiddly. Also, Church Mystic Novel Bro has asked, is it true the Eagles are coordinated by a Scottish rugby coach? If true, highly based.
The Eagles are coordinated by a Scottish rugby coach, yes.
So let me get into tests. And this is something I actually like in their game design. Okay. The story you will tell is created through moments of play in which characters faces a challenge. Whether they succeed or fail, their actions will generate new story twists, good results, and consequences that will be interesting or dangerous or both. The outcomes of these risky actions is decided by tests. A test is something a bounty hunter uses to move forward both aspects of the section, fiction, and mechanics. The big shot doesn't make the tests themselves. They respond to what happens in the bounty hunter's tests. For a test to be meaningful, the bounty hunter's character should have a goal they want to achieve and have interesting consequences to face. If these 2 conditions are met, that's a test. And then you use an approach to determine your test. If you want to show your character withstanding something overwhelming, that's a rock approach. It involves cool actions where the character is trying to do something under a lot of pressure, keeping their composure or staying calm in the face of danger. Being the unstoppable force, that's a dance approach. It involves dramatic, exuberant actions, displays of stamina and recklessness, or an endless flow of energy. Facing inner feelings, that's a blues approach. It involves spirituality, the character's self-awareness and understanding of their emotions, their ability to look within, and it gains enlightenment. Influencing others, that's a tango approach. And understanding their environment, that's a jazz approach.
I'm sure someone thought they were very clever when they came up with that.
I mean, this is basically Fate.
Right.
Then you build your dice pool. They start with a number of dice equal to the base number of the current session tab. 1 for the first tab, 2 for the second tab, 3 for the third. They then add 1d6 for each trait from their chosen approach that was involved in the fiction setup. In some cases, the bounty hunter characters may not have traits to use. If this session is a classic session, we'll get to that in a moment, They add 1d6 if the traits used by the character have the same approach as the session's genre. Some effects in game will give you an advantage or disadvantage on the test. That works as the way we all know. Hits and shocks. One if the total sum of the
I'll
dice.
be right back.
Sure. One if the total sum of the dice is equal or greater than the difficulty of the current session tab, or if one or at least 2 6s are rolled. The test also produces a number of shocks equal to the numbers of 1. Now, you can absorb shocks by wounding a trait. On their character sheet, they draw a slash to the trait if the character used the test. If a trait is wounded, it can't be used to add dice on a test or to absorb more shocks. If no traits were used, the bounty hunter can't remove that. You may also remove one shock by marking a bullet on their character sheet. Bounty hunter marks one of the empty chambers in the burned near their memory with an X. This could only happen 6 times before the character must face their past. And that is featured in a special game session. You spend hits and shocks to move things closer to danger by taking clock or to alter difficulties. And it explains, you need to get your character involved, show your wounds, push, gamble, show off, assist, improv, jam. Clocks are, how they determine objectives. Now, there are multiple different kinds of game sessions, which is the next thing I wanted to cover here. There is the classic session, the personal session, the filler session, and the season breakpoint, which is also something we will call the end of campaign. All right, let me get to the right page for that. Tabs, session traits. Come on. So classic session is structured with a brief setup and 3 tabs. 3 main scenes where the action takes place and unfolds with a "See You Space Cowboy" as the denouncement. A personal session occurs when the bounty hunter marks the last bullet on their character sheet. The next session is a personal session with their character or characters in the spotlight. The structure is similar to the classic one, but there are some twists. In this kind of session, the bounty hunter cannot lose control of their character, and the big shot can lose control over the framing of the story. This is a chance to use different viewpoints to reveal the unexpected and make something new through collaboration. And the filler session, every well-respected anime and TV series has episodes that wander off the usual track, hunting down a toxic creature, tackling a comic outbreak of tiny animals, or just a beach episode. These episodes do not move the plot forward, but every character gets a chance to embrace change, show their bonds, and deepen their relationships, as well as being unexpectedly silly and fun. In this game, they're called filler sessions. The big shot can call for a filler session if there's a season breakpoint getting closer, but it's something the players can opt into it at times as well.
So there are other things I want to say, but I want to break in real quick by saying, fuck you, fuck the horse you rode in on, and fuck everything about that. It is a current problem in discourse about gaming that there are people who seem to think that what you desperately need in your game is a shopping episode where all you do is gather loot.
You actually use that to heal consequences on your character. It's one of the methods
might
you
be
have.
so, but you can just as readily make that a downtime action and get back to the purpose of actually playing game. Nobody enjoys the beach episode. It is an excuse for losers to be sexy times and gross with each other. My dog does not approve.
Now, season breakpoints. When every character has enough weights, with or without an X, then it's time for season breakpoint, a double session focused on the character's memories to push the story forward or ... to the end. On each character's sheet, there is room for 3 weights. When each bounty hunter has 1 weight, a season breakpoint should be triggered, with the special session taking place after any possible personal session to be played. Then, when every bounty hunter has 2 weights and at least one has 3, This special session should be triggered again, and you should play it as the finale of the campaign. And the closure involves rolling dice, and you determine if your character lives or dies. In the session, if the session was a season finale, or whatever the players decide to move on, every bounty hunter should roll with a base dice pool of 1d6, adding 1d6 for each weight marked with an X, against a difficulty of 10. With 0 hits, the character has succumbed to their past, dying, or falling back to their old ways. With 1 hit, the character comes to terms with their past, but they'll never really be free. But things have just become a little better. 2 hits means the character moves on. They are finally free. Their path will take them forward in new ways, for better or for worse. So, do you want to have me discuss the character creation?
I mean, I would argue that we've already gone really deep on the mechanisms of this game. You could do the
because
character
the game is trying to sell
Wait,
you.
Did you just say something clever, Room? Did you just call it the mechanisms?
He did.
I wish I had. That would have been great.
Also, when you are dealing with factions or things on a world, it gives you a random table, which is 6 things.
See, just before we hit go live, I was talking about how licensed games don't work and saying that it's a range because sometimes they really work and sometimes they really don't.
Also, I've been real quick just to interject. I've
Yeah.
been looking into what Novel Bro was asking about.
Yeah.
And apparently, it's not one of the coordinators, but it is a guy who came in and basically taught them how to tackle like not pussies.
How to tackle like you mean it. What do we do? Well, get the fuck in there!
And they've
Kick his face in! It's like
they've effectively named it the Tush Push.
oh Jesus Christ!
So we got that going for us.
But
So
the thing is, because I want to be fair, I'm not gonna just rake this over the coals. The people who sat down to make it, and we'll put aside any claims of originality or reinventing the wheel, they clearly didn't. They wanted to replicate the feel of watching an episode of Cowboy Bebop.
in fact, they give you an example of how to run each episode like you're running the role play.
Oh, I
for the
fucking
episode.
hate that. They did that in the Firefly book as well. The presumption is, unwritten or implied, that you are going to play the characters from Cowboy Bebop.
Yes.
And then the follow through is that this is how you replicate the specific flavors of the show. The thing is that that's not a role playing game. That's a board game with extra steps. And at every level, as you were describing its functions, right? The various stances you could take, the various methods you could take, the conflict resolution, it's all, we're adding more and more words that create more and more kludge for more and more steps to replicate an idea. This whimsical idea of I am a Cowboy Bebop character as a GM. And again, this
You
is
could
like
have done this entire book in like 20 pages.
but more succinctly, because this is again a very current debate. There are people complaining about people who don't read the manual and just run a D&D and then say that they're running D&D and that they're geniuses, right? And then you have people who say, no, read the fucking manual, rules as written. Both are reasonably insufferable. Because if you're not going to use the rules, why bother? And if you're only going to use the rules, then what the fuck are you doing? That's Excel.
In Magic the Gathering, we have this thing called Rule Zero.
Right.
Okay. And
we also have in tabletop role playing games.
Well, they might not be the same Rule Zero. What's the Rule Zero in Magic?
Okay, so in Magic, every format has its own set of rules, right?
Right.
So you sit down at the table and you have a pre-assigned band list from Wizards of the Coast.
Right.
But if you sit down at the table and you go, "Hey guys, I know Emrakul the Aeon's Torn is a band commander because that card is busted and no one wants to play against it. But I happen to have this Emrakul the Aeon's Torn deck." And everybody goes, "Well, I haven't been beaten like a fucking stepchild in a while. Go ahead and play it."
Right.
Then, it's fine.
That's
Nobody gives a shit. But if you sit down and you don't say, "Hey guys, I've got this Emrakul the Aeon's Torn deck," and you just proceed to play, there's a good chance that people are going to meet you in the parking lot.
right. It is the same thing in tabletop to possibly a less violent degree. That rule zero is supposed to be when the rules don't work or when there's a conflict, use best judgment. That some people have taken to mean the rules don't matter, do whatever the fuck you want. It's not like that. But that's the thing, is that looking at this, if I was like, okay, guys, we're gonna play the Cowboy Bebop game, you've insisted, you love the setting, whatever. I'm cleaning out 20 to 30% of the clutch. There are rules I am just gonna fucking ignore because I can make this faster and easier on me,
Mhm.
if not on my
Well,
players.
well, a lot of the most common one that I'm familiar with, and it could be different between you guys is with your experience, but most of the time when I've sat down to play any kind of tabletop RPG in my lifetime, um, weight to a massive degree has been ignored in inventory slotting.
Right.
Mhm.
Like
I
a
mean,
lot of
I
the
am
time, if you can give your DM a really good reason why you should be able to shove a weight bench in your bag of holding, he's gonna let you.
right. I know people that go completely livid if you ignore weight, but I always say the same thing. I like weight. I like making you count your brass. I'm going to assume you're doing that. Don't make me have a reason to specifically require you to keep track of it. Use your best judgment. If you know that it is unreasonable that your strength 13 fighter can't carry 6 swords, don't try to carry 6 swords, please.
But they're
If
magic swords, Joe.
and if you I'm just saying, if you make me do the math, we're all doing the math and no one's going to have fun. That's a different thing. What I'm getting at here is that this is a situation where I would be inclined to say the system itself is interfering with the fun, right? Um, and it's all because they want to replicate Cowboy Bebop. An actual game of this type, a licensed game that wants to succeed, it sounds counterintuitive. Don't replicate the show, replicate the setting. You want me to explore Cowboy Bebop? You want me to have fun? Give me a palette to play with. Don't don't
Mhm.
hem me into the specific roles and the specific
Well,
characters and
I
specific events of the
I,
medium.
I think that kind of goes hand in hand with what I was talking about with how my experience with the Magic the Gathering universes beyond Doctor Who decks went. I sat down and
Right.
I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, this doesn't feel like I'm playing Magic the Gathering. This feels as though that I'm playing a Doctor Who episode in Magic the Gathering cards.
Right. And I mean, it might be fun once, but the question is it fun in a lasting way? I would say no. Hmm.
No, it's not even fun once.
I actually was looking while you were talking, Larry.
Mhm.
And you know what I find very interesting? You know what there is not that I'd be way more interested to play? There is not an Outlaw Star RPG.
Right, but there are several systems I would recommend making for
Oh
Outlaw
yeah,
Star.
no,
This would not be
that
one of them.
that was immediately the conversation is what games would you play with this? And lots of people of course said Starfinder. Some people came up with more interesting options. But the thing is that uh Outlaw Star is a galaxy of opportunities and weirdness and multicolored animal women and races and things to do, right? Cowboy Bebop is a quieter, more introspective series,
Mhm.
limited to our solar system. And while there are things to do, everything you said describing this game was trimming off those options. And I understand that the class is actually classless, that you design your own character as a bounty hunter. There's no reason you couldn't say, this is my bounty hunter model, he's actually a space cop.
Or just be a space cop and
or be a space cop, or be a criminal, or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
But there was very little emphasis on what you could do, where you could go, how you could go there. They're like, well, we're going to give you a section on the colorful universe of Cowboy Bebop. And I'm like, what, you're going to talk about Mars? You're going to talk about
they talked
Venus?
about all the planets, actually.
Right, but mostly the ones that were in the show.
All the ones that were in the show, actually.
Right. So that's history that's fixed. What's my part in it?
Well, I mean, they don't actually talk about the history other than the stuff that happened before the show.
Right. But when I talk about World of Darkness in Old World, and I talk about NPC theater, and I talk about how I don't enjoy that, part of that is that it is sometimes fun, but it is not always fun to be the fly on the wall in somebody else's game.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If I said, okay, guys, we're gonna do a story of Cowboy Bebop, and we're gonna be soldiers who fought for colonial independence, and somebody who's paying attention goes, are we gonna meet Vicious? It's like, no, but we're on the same planet.
You were. It was a big civil war.
Right. Because actually meeting Vicious would actually diminish your role in that story. You would then become part of Vicious's story.
I mean, Vicious wasn't actually that big of a deal until he got back to Mars and became a criminal.
Right, but I'm saying it's the being given the option to participate as well. I don't want to meet Spike. I don't want to meet Jet. And let's face it, anyone who actually wants to meet Faye, that they're just living out their lemon fan fictions at your game table, and we don't need none of that.
I mean, they have rules for that, Joe. We read them. Yeah.
I will wave on one thing.
Miscellaneous Joe noises in the background.
There's no reason we can't have data dogs in our game.
Exactly. They actually have rules for how to play an Ein.
Wait, you can play the dog?
Yes, they say that is a perfectly valid option.
Okay, so this game just became epic level because the obvious answer is you play a Cowboy Bebop game, everyone is Ein. And everyone is a data dog. The entire party is data dogs.
Yeah, the only way you win is to get the most pets.
Yes, to be goodest boy. But see, that's the thing, is that we just invented, with a joke, a more interesting way to play this game than the game itself.
I mean, we would basically be playing this.
Yes. Wait, I wasn't looking. What?
Oh, I'll play it again.
Oh, yeah. No.
Oh, I want to play that.
But yeah, so it's not innovative. It's very pretty. Has lots of good, pretty stills and reproductions from the anime. And it doesn't really go deep into the world or the setting. It does have some interesting ideas here and there, but, nothing you couldn't just come up with on your own.
Well, the reason I said I had to be fair, because, we just talked a bunch of shit about it, is I have to consider what it is rather than what it should be. It should be a role-playing game, right? But it's unfair to expect Gamma World or D&D or something out of it. What it is, it's a licensed game. And for a licensed game, it's probably pretty mid.
That ripped off Fate's mechanics, basically.
It's probably good enough for a serious Cowboy Bebop fan.
Hmm?
You know, if you're a serious fan of the show and you just absolutely need it, then go with God. If you're a
Hmm?
more general role playing game consumer, it might not be for you.
Yeah. So I have 2 comic book reviews.
Well, before we get into your comic book reviews,
Okay.
we really should talk about Dungeon Crawler Carl while we're
Also,
on the vein of tabletop RPGs.
also,
Well, I
who
mean,
is
I have Conan,
bullying
so
you,
we can
Einbrecht? Because I thought you were hardcore.
we can switch over from Dungeon Crawler Carl into all that.
Yeah, but let's see here. That's the first one. Let's find one from where I'm. There we go. Here's the cover from the book that I'm currently on, which gives you kind of an update of what Carl's looking like these days. I'll let's see. How do there we go. So we'll present this and then I'll get into it. Um so Dungeon Crawler Carl is an audiobook series that I've been listening to because, you know, I need to be entertained.
Mhm.
So the premise of the series is Earth has been basically decimated.
Mhm.
And 3 o'clock in the morning, all the buildings go poof, vaporized, everyone in them gone. But in the meantime, all of that matter was used by an alien force to create an underground dungeon that is televised as a reality TV show for the universe's amusement. Now, there are 18 levels to this dungeon, and it plays out kind of like your Murder Hobo RPG. And so we follow the titular character, Carl. Now,
Mhm.
Carl is depicted here as the gentleman in the night gaunt cowl with the jacket with one sleeve on it, wearing spiked knee pads, no pants, heart boxers, and a gauntlet. Um, his class, if I'm not mistaken, is compensated anarchist, and he likes to blow things up with goblin and hobgoblin things.
So you're reading a lit RPG.
Yes, yes, that is what this is called. And his companion is his ex girlfriend's cat, who goes
Mhm.
by the nom
Mhm.
de guerre Princess Donut. She was immediately given the ability to speak and made a independent character. Like she's no longer a pet class; she is her own crawler because her intelligence is higher than Carl's, um, as is her charisma.
I mean, I
And
suspect that the charisma and the intelligence were always higher, just now she can talk.
right, yes, basically that's where we're at. But so far in this is where I got into the weightless inventory thing because that's the way inventory works in this particular dungeon setting. They have digital menus, so basically everything just slips into the nothing pocket. And this guy's currently carrying around basically the equivalent of an atom bomb in his pants, even though he has no pants. The AI has a foot fetish and won't let him wear shoes lest he take several debuffs. Um, I mean, I'm invested. There are 6 books in the series. I have them all. I'm just working my
it
way through them.
it sounds as
Um,
though it has the just the right level of self-aware snark to be amusing.
it
By the
is.
way, Joe, there's an OSR book that is kind of like this.
Oh, which one's
uh,
that?
I will
It's
say
the one that's set on a alternate version of Earth where the immortal President Ronald Reagan runs a corrupt empire and everybody watches dungeon crawling on TV as their bread and circuses.
Oh God.
very similar premise. Yes, a lot of the creatures in the dungeon are bred specifically to be NPCs, even though they
Hmm.
are actual living, breathing people and not like animatronics or anything. So even if they're like murdered horribly during a specific dungeon season, when the next dungeon opens up, they just kind of wake up like nothing ever happened.
Please kill me. My life is suffering.
They don't realize that though. They have fake memories implanted. Like we just got done with the conductor character in book 3, who has been exploiting a money glitch that he found out because everything that you put into the specific drawer for this amount of time respawns every cycle. So he's been like doubling his money every couple of weeks, waiting to get home to his wife and retire with her after so many tours, even though there is no wife or home.
Right.
His job is to be the conductor of this train until his job is something else next cycle. But he doesn't
Right.
know that. And it kind of gives you that, like, occasionally it takes a step back from just being fucking absurd and hilarious and makes you feel things for certain characters. And you're just like, how the fuck did this stupid fucking book just do that? I was just listening to a guy whose voice to sound like Patrick
So,
Warburton.
so it's kind of like Animorphs in that regard.
Kind of. Also, the Critical Drinker is a guest in the 3rd book. I don't know how you guys feel about the Critical Drinker. I am
We like him.
okay. Yeah, I have no opinion, but I saw
I've not read his book series. I've been meaning to.
But he is a guest voice in the audiobook for book 3.
I generally like the Critical's shorter takes, but I feel that in his longer takes, when he's with the group and they're talking about a big subject, there is that undercurrent of echo chamber that always bothers me. Because everybody already knows their positions and they already agree on them.
Yeah. But yeah, Dungeon Crawler Carl. So far, 3 books. Now, I will say in book 2, it almost pulled me out a little bit that they got a little bit political and kind of talked about some absurdities, but it was quickly dropped. And it was talked about from the like third party position of aliens looking into our culture as opposed to somebody who had a specific stance one way or the other.
Aliens looking at our culture and not understanding why we do all these things that we do.
Right. But no, it's a very interesting series. And again, it constantly pulls you back and forth from caring about these characters like they're real people, because every so often you realize, oh yeah, I mean, while it's awesome that this guy just made a bomb out of some moonshine and some dynamite he pulled off of a goblin's entrails, uh, he's a real person that's actually going through some shit and constantly has to like steel himself and resolve that this experience will not break him.
Well, one of those conversation points that I have with newbie gamers versus old school gamers is the newbies who are influenced largely by Critical Role and D&D 5 and the like think that fantasy RPGs are uh, uh, Disney rides, right? And we're all just having fun and everything is cool. Even if they have drama, it's always non-threatening drama. And I'm over here going like, no, guys, being an adventurer sucks. And people that are good at it are crazy. And they're like, what do you mean? What do you mean? It's like, look, it's being a 49er. It's panning for gold. You said you're going to go out into the wilderness where there are dangerous, murderous barbarians, and you're going to find gold. And when you do, you get just enough money to resupply, to re-equip, and to go out and do it again. You're making a horrible life decision. But if you can survive, somehow, you can go from murderous hobo to empowered nobleman, local potentate, possibly the mayor. You know,
Right.
you know, uh, a good D&D adventurer or adventurer alike is more like the bad guy from There Will Be Blood than a fun Saturday morning cartoon character. So it is entirely appropriate that your main character in your dungeon crawl book here, Carl, is like, okay, we've done this before. We can do this again. It's just some guts. It's just some dynamite. It's all good. Everything is fine. Everything is fine.
Oh
Get
yeah.
it together. Everything is fine.
Oh yeah. Well, one of his bonuses is you know that stupid game where you hold that it's like racquetball,
Yeah.
I guess,
Yeah.
and you have that
You mean
fucking
badminton?
no racquetball where you have the like sling almost.
Yeah.
Well, he got an alien version of that as a weapon because the dungeon decided it was really boring for him to have a slingshot to test the waters on things further away before he got close to it. So instead, it gave him one of these, basically a racket that attaches to his hand,
Yeah.
but it's like the tube sling. You've seen those guys
Right.
doing that shit up against the wall where it's just
Yeah.
like if that thing hits you in the head, you die.
Right.
Well, he has one of those to throw grenades with now.
Oh boy.
You know, because he become perfect. He was ex-military, obviously. A normal person probably wouldn't survive long. Also, spoiler alert: apparently, when the dungeon started, there were like 14 million people that made it into the dungeon that weren't inside a building at
Yeah.
3:15 his time zone.
Many of them
This
died.
is worldwide too. This isn't just like in the U.S.
Many
This
of
is the
them
entire
died.
planet. So, I mean, there are characters from Iceland, there are characters from Africa, shit like that, China. But anyway, 14 million people started. By the time they reached level 4, there were a total of, I think, 400,000 people left.
Yeah,
Mm.
sounds about right.
And the goal is to make it down to level 18, which no one's ever done before.
Well, see, that's one of the interesting things is that actual adventuring, actual dungeoneering, right? While it is fun at the role playing table, to observe would actually be pretty boring, right? Because it's a mental process. There's a lot of prep. There's a lot of taking your time and measuring, right? But
Right.
you're not describing a regular dungeon. You're describing a bunch of aliens came over and turned the planet into a video game called Smash TV,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, okay, you're in the dungeon. You're not a loser, but you're kind of boring. Let's mix it up a bit and make it interesting. What if you had grenades? It's like, fuck, I didn't want grenades. Now I got grenades.
Yeah.
And that's great.
So the D&D OSR like that I've played in, you have to get sponsors, and you
Right.
have to do your like little mic work to get your sponsors happy with you, and that affects how much gold you make.
There
affects the
are
gear you can buy.
sponsorships in this book.
Yeah. No, I'm just painting a picture here, and you have to sell for your sponsors. So there are ways you can make this concept entertaining and make organic sense if you're playing it as a game.
Yeah. No, they make a big deal out of the sponsorship and fan packages, because obviously people latched on to Donut and Carl because they blow shit up and it's a sassy talking cat.
I mean,
And go ahead.
but my friends Ty and Moody hooked me into watching a new anime. It's only got one episode out. It's gonna slowly be more, but it's a lit RPG anime.
Solo
And
leveling.
and it is solo leveling, and it is very much the same in that it's like, okay, so everybody has a magical potential. You go to school, you get measured at the big machine, and when you come out, there's a million headhunters for various guilds. They're like, do you want to be a member? You want to sign this contract you have no understanding of? I'll be your agent. It'll be great. And Moody and I had an
Right.
extensive conversation about predatory contract law and whether or not this system was designed to screw over the players, which I still stand by. It absolutely is.
Right.
Because if you can't get sponsored, then you are fighting uphill.
Yeah.
But
No, they
if you're
make a big.
sponsored, they own you, man. They always owned you.
Well, the sponsorship in this one is it's viewer sponsorships. It's almost kind of like crowdfunding to a certain degree.
So
It's
it's
kind of
kind of
like-
like what they do in Hunger Games.
It's voting on
Yes.
American Idol.
Right, but then if you do well, then obviously, like in Hunger Games, you get sponsor box drops and shit like that. So if you need something and you have good sponsors and they like you, then you're not going to need it for long. Or if there's something that'll make it entertaining, then you're more likely to get it. Obviously, it's all a big monetary system. The entire reason that everything's happening on Earth at this current juncture is apparently because the system that's running the games is going bankrupt, and this is their attempt to like pull themselves out of that and not be decommissioned. It's all a lot of intricate shit that I'm just realizing is all tacked on top of.
We'll just find a primitive planet, and we'll just turn the monkeys into players. It'll be great. It'll be cheap. It'll be inexpensive. Don't ask questions.
Yes. Also, if I was ever to do this, my race that I would pick would be 3 kobolds in a trench coat.
Indeed, I believe that was what you were doing before.
That is Church's idea, and Joe, I think you get a sense of what he's wanting to do for his dungeon that we're gonna be running. It's gonna be a thing that's gonna happen.
Well, I was recently reminded of the D&D saying we're taking half races out of D&D. So I am now more on board with things that defy that standard. So I propose to you, Church, instead of 3 kobolds in a trench coat, how about 3 half kobolds?
Well, no, it's actually 2 kobolds and an erd in a trench coat.
Well, yeah, because you need the wings.
Yeah. That's what props out for the shoulders.
Right.
Yes, it's 3 kobolds and an erd in a trench coat. Casting disguised self to pretend to be a Goliath.
Of course. Of course. Aren't you short for a Goliath? Judge me by my size, do you?
But this is a great segue for me talking about the comics I reviewed. One of them being the new Conan the Barbarian comic issue. We are currently on the sad boy arc of Conan, having women get killed in fighting gods over this artifact that was the MacGuffin from the beginning, and they're being possessed people, zombies, and Conan fighting them. So it's good. Again, if you like Conan stuff, but I really get the sense because it's not really doing super great sales numbers, and I think it's largely because the number of people who buy comics right now who know Conan are small, and I don't think there's anything that's really gonna grab people by the scruff of the neck like there was in the opening, saying, "Hey, look at this stuff here. Look at Conan going home, defeating some zombies, saving a girl that he boned while going on the adventuring trail." I still enjoy it. I still recommend it to people, but I think we may be seeing this taper out around 8 or 12 issues in, maybe 13, and then they sub out for another writer. That'd be my guess of what's going to happen next for the Conan book, and I think that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. Getting some new, but also authentic feeling Howard type Conan adventures. Even though, as we discussed previously, it really sounds a lot more Elsprig the Camp.
Yeah, I was gonna say nothing you've actually described sounds very Conan-like to me. Um,
But I mean, again, Elspring the Cramp is
well,
fine. It's not
well, well,
Howard.
well. Then again, there is apparently a French Conan film with a gender-flipped Conan.
That's weird.
Oh, it is extra weird. And then when you watch the trailer, it's like that doesn't sound like Conan at all. That sounds like Edward Wagner's Kane. It sounds super weird. But somehow, Damnedest Bastard, the premier Conan purist and fanboy, is like, no, it's great, man. It's great. It's no worse than Conan 82, and it's like, huh.
I mean,
Okay.
Conan 82 is pretty good.
Conan 82 is pretty good. So, I mean, it's not like it's a well that hasn't been plumbed in weirdness.
I mean, I think we're reaching that point though where those characters have either sat on the shelf or it's just not time for them to come back. I don't know exactly what it is, but this is one of the first times that we're kind of trying to see a lot of resurgence in that sword and sorcery genre, and it just isn't sticking like it used
Well,
to in like the 80s and the 90s.
part of the problem is uh, corporate interference trying to suppress different versions of sword and sorcery. Okay, so if you're not familiar, some years ago a Solomon Kane movie came out. It's quite good. Okay, but it only came to American shores almost 6 years after release for two problems. One is they couldn't get American distribution, and two is they then shopped it around to um the film convention circuit to try and build grassroots buzz for it. But people who dug into it, like myself, found that the actual reason they couldn't get distribution is that it was a European production using European money being pushed out of Hollywood by major studios because they didn't want the competition of a dramatic R-rated single character narrative sword and sorcery film against Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter.
I mean, I don't understand why, because those are completely different audiences, if you ask me.
Because you got to put on your Hollyweird hat for a minute, Church. You got to suck more cocks, right? You think, well, Lord of the Rings is its own
I don't.
audience.
I don't actually. That's not in my
Harry Potter is its
contract.
own audience. Solomon Kane is its own audience, and they don't connect. And you'd be correct, right? But the Hollyweird says, but they're all fantasy genre. They're all going to compete because they're all fantasy genre. They're all the same, right? The first thing that I said when I was talking to guys about this French Conan film, and people were talking about why can't we get a more Howard accurate Conan film, is I said because if they did something like, say, Tower of the Elephant, which is a straight fun hero breaks into a dungeon and steals a thing adventure, the first thing that some Hollywood guy's gonna do when they read it is go, but where's the love interest? There's no goyles, there's no boobs. No one's gonna watch a show without boobs and without a love interest. And it's like, that's not the story, you dumb fuck. Right? Uh the Hollywood bubble thinks that everything has to be the same congested paste. So part of the reason we can't get a popular resurgence in primary media is because primary media hasn't failed enough to try dangerous things. and quite frankly, the big megacorps keep throwing money at it. I mean, how long can
I
Star
don't see
Wars
how
fail before
Conan.
we get something else?
Well, I mean, as long as Disney has money.
Right.
Well, they don't have money
Exactly.
anymore.
But
But
I
they're
don't. I don't
still
honestly
burning
see
it.
Well, I don't honestly see where, looking at something like Conan would be a failure. Because, I mean, obviously it has a draw. I just don't understand why it's not latching on. Because if the audience was there, it would latch on to whatever it was given, if it was given stuff of substance. And from what Larry said, this comic does have the substance. It just doesn't have
It
the
also has
the
good quality
pull.
art.
Well, that's what I'm considering part of the substance.
Here's
Hmm.
here's here's what I'm getting at though. Roll your eyes back a bit to Conan 2010. You've got a young Jason Momoa. He's got the look and the presence, right?
That
You've
movie
got the
wasn't terrible.
you've got the FX budget, right?
I mean, it
And they
wasn't
said
great, but it wasn't terrible. It was.
the thing is they said this is gonna be real Howard. This is gonna be serious Conan. Okay?
It was
It's
not
not.
serious Conan.
It's not serious Conan. It's not Conan like at all. It's barely a Beastmaster. It's not bad, but it ain't great, and it didn't do well.
To be fair, Beastmaster was a lot more serious than most Conan was at the time.
It was, but what I'm getting at is that when it fails, they don't say, "Oh, well, we interfered with the soup too much. That's why it didn't do well." Their response is to blame the property. Well, Conan doesn't sell. No, what you did to it didn't sell. Conan sells just fine. Look at the math. People keep buying it. Okay? Larry's basic tale, as told, is Conan goes home. Okay. Right?
That was the first arc.
Conan has adventures.
Conan
fine.
going home, he stole that bit from Musashi.
Sure. But it's like I'm open to the idea. Sure, we're gonna see Conan in Samaria. What's that gonna be? That's gonna be interesting, right?
He's fighting zombies in Samaria.
Right, and
did
then
anybody actually get that joke?
I did.
Just lost. Okay. Thank you.
But then in your second description here, you're saying, eldritch abominations, zombies, gods, evil wizards, and weeping about a girl.
Yeah.
Really? Is that really Conan's thing? Because
Well,
let me tell you, he felt bad about the pirate queen dying.
Oh no,
But
that's the second arc. That's the second arc.
But he was not overcome by it. He immediately went and found someone else to sleep with. That's kind of his thing.
That's also in the second arc of the book, and she gets possessed by an eldritch abomination.
Right. Because, and this is an example of the thing. Howard's work had elements of weird horror in it, but it wasn't dripping in eldritch abominations. However, because Conan fights eldritch abominations, or you gotta have your eldritch abomination in your Conan, bitch. You can't have just a story in the Conan. That won't work. People won't like it. Okay? I mean, look, just watch Conan 82, which is still Camp, right? Or watch Conan the Destroyer, right? Which is more comedic than 82, right? And then compare it to Kull the Conqueror. Okay? People seem to think Conan is a cartoon character, and it is really bad that the best Conan we ever got on paper was a cartoon. Because Conan the Adventurer is actually quite good. And it's literally because the people making it or the producers funding it don't have faith in the property by its own metrics. We almost got an animated Ron Perlman as Conan doing Red Nails, and they wimped out at the 11th hour. That's why we only have some
Nobody
test
wants
footage.
Ron Perlman doing anything, Rune. Calm down.
What are you talking about? Ron Perlman's a great voice actor. The fuck?
Ron
Yo,
Perlman's
you get out.
The worst at Ron Perlman's the worst at everything. You calm down.
Ron Perlman is great. Space herpy.
Ron Perlman has space herpes.
Have you never seen Ice Pirates?
No.
Well, then you have nothing to say.
I do. He's a douchebag.
What? His politics as a human? Yeah, no, that's a different problem. I'm talking about the productions of work he has made. He's a good actor. He does good voice acting work. I enjoyed his Hellboy. It's certainly better than the guy from Stranger Things.
That is, I'll give you that.
Although the guy from Stranger Things could have done a good job if he had been given a
Yeah, I
better.
don't-
Given anything to
I
work
don't
with.
I don't actually blame the guy from Stranger Things for not having good material. That was just the nature of the film. He's a victim, if anything.
Hmm.
But therein lies a perfect example. You had the roadmap for a good Hellboy, right? You had all the tools available. You could have got Del Toro and Perlman back, but you said no. We want to make it our own thing with hookers and blackjack. I'm gonna get a different
Well,
guy
Mhm.
and a
the
different
second
story.
the second Hellboy movie was with Perlman was kind of garbage.
But it wasn't bad.
The elves was kind of bad.
But it wasn't bad.
I mean, that's kind of like saying this shit only stinks so much.
Compared to the shit they could have made or they proceeded to make, yeah, kinda. Look, if you have a good series, you want good to follow good, but a misstep is not the same as an abject failure.
Right, but that was when Hollywood just wouldn't take a misstep even.
Right, and that's the thing, is that now Hollywood doesn't even care about missteps. They just want to force you to continue eating the slop. And it's not gonna work. And the thing is that they can't change track. So to my mind, their perception is we have to stop anything else coming out that would make people think what we're giving them is slop. They are non-competitive now. Competition scares them. No rocking the boat. That
Fair
means
enough.
you can't have a Conan that's Conan, because having a Conan that's Conan, if it did really well, would utterly destroy the narrative of what's currently accepted fantasy fiction, which is what, the D&D movie?
Oh God, yeah. You're not wrong.
I don't want to be right.
So, the other book I have is the JMS Captain America book, and at this point,
Do we
the
just
book.
wish Captain America would die?
No,
Okay.
at this point, we are kind of in a interesting conundrum. We have a story with Steve back in the Depression, being being all scrawny and fighting proto Nazis in America. That
As
is
you did.
modestly compelling. You have Hydra being involved with the German American Bund. And then we have the story set in current year Marvel, where there is a super science, magical, fueled being who's trying to challenge Captain America for being the totemic spirit of America. Absolutely boring. Dull as rocks. Maybe they should have, I don't know, done like 3 to 4 solid episodes of Steve in the 30s fighting Nazis with the Jewish mafia. And then they maybe should have come up with something in contemporary America's parallel.
Oh, but Larry, then
Tell
when you
stories.
come back and the anniversary issue in January of 2024, like the anniversary of January 6th, could have been Steve current day at the Capitol building fighting Nazis in current time.
Mm.
I will admit, and fuck you, lefty woke fuckholes, for not thinking of this. I would love it. I would love it if we had a cover and a story in which Captain America punches out the shaman on the Senate floor, in a throwback to the old Captain America punching out Hitler cover. That would have been awesome.
Mm.
Because my native question is, what the fuck are they doing? And more specifically, what exactly does it say about Captain America, about Steve, and about America itself to have Captain America fight a cosmic enemy for the totemic power of America? That's retarded,
Mhm. I
right?
agree.
And as you were saying, it doesn't dovetail with the other story where you have this invasive evil that is Hydra and the German American Bund and proto Nazis fifth columning in America. You need something that uh, synergizes with that story, right? And your
Mhm.
story is about how even though Steve is no longer the scrawny youth, right? He's still the same person, right? And the ultimate answer you should come away with is that Steve Rogers is a good man, because that's always been the thing. Steve Rogers is the good guy. There are other heroes.
Mhm.
There are other uh uh anti-heroes. There are other people with all kinds of variations.
Steve Rogers isn't necessarily the good guy; he's the moral compass, and I think there's a difference
Right.
there. But we're not ready to have that conversation.
I mean, we can have that conversation, but I'm just saying is that if you don't have a moral compass, the guy who has a moral compass is the good guy.
I mean, yeah, Injustice wants a word about that.
Well, Injustice is a horrible fucking series that can eat a dick. But proceed.
Just saying, like that's the premise of Injustice, and Injustice wants a word. But nah, I don't know. I've always kind of liked Captain America over Superman, definitely as a moral compass, because Captain America has made the hard choice before, decapitating Baron Zemo, being a werewolf, all of those things. But
Here's
I don't know.
here's the thing that is pertinent, that is I think misunderstood, because the current writers and the current artists love to get Cap in the uniform, and they think the uniform is America. More than once in some of Captain America's best stories are the ones where he has maybe not given up the shield, but he has taken off the uniform because the things the government, things America expects him to do were not in keeping with the spirit of America. And I'm not talking Civil War. I'm
Mhm.
talking like the Punisher Rogers crossover where they take on basically fucking Halliburton because there
Mhm.
are American arms manufacturers illicitly trafficking American weapons that are then being used by terrorists to kill American soldiers. And Steve's like, I can't look the other way on this just because it's legal and they found loopholes. It's fucking wrong because
Right.
it's wrong.
So you said you had another book later. Oh wait, no, that was the second
No,
book.
that was the other book. That was the other one. We haven't quite gotten to the point yet where anything from TV has popped the interest for me, but
Yeah.
I,
We
I'm,
could always talk
I,
about aliens.
yeah, we could talk about the aliens. Do you want to
My
pull that out?
well, while you're pulling that up, I do want to point out that my wife made a discovery that I think most of the audience and you guys had probably already made, but I had
Mm,
never quite put together
mm.
outside of a few like comparisons. Sonic the Hedgehog is just Dragon Ball Z for kids.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
I'm ashamed of myself for not making that clear like earlier. I just didn't realize it just never like it occurred to me to a certain degree because Super Saiyan Sonic, the Chaos Emeralds being the Dragon Balls, like I get that, but
Mm.
then you start looking at it like, okay, well, most of his enemies are androids or clones or survivors of his race that he didn't know existed. Wait a goddamn minute,
So
Wait a
do you
minute,
guys
Matt. No,
right?
so do you guys want me to put this up on screen then? So we have something to look at?
just a second. I'm actually pulling the article up.
Yeah, I
And I
think
probably want to.
people.
All right, give me a second. But on a related point to what Church was discussing,
Oh damn! Even though there are things about this description of film that concern me, I want to presage point out that Fede Alvarez is a known director. He's good.
Hmm?
He's made good horror movies before, so I mean maybe.
Yeah, where did I actually put that Sonic the Hedgehog drop?
Right,
Ah, there it is.
I did not see the sign.
Whoa! That's interesting, but I sure don't care.
We do have a
Very good.
Sonic drop. All right, now we go to share screen. Share screen. Pull this down to here we go, and allow. Disney's new Alien movie does what Ridley Scott's 1979 original was intentionally avoiding. Disney's new entry in the Alien movie franchise proves that filmmakers still don't understand the magic of Ridley Scott's 1979 original. Well, the thing is, this movie's being made by Ridley Scott, so
It's not.
no, it is. This is being produced as a
Yeah,
continuation of his
but if you-
narrative with
but if you
Prometheus.
scroll down, it's being directed by Fede Alvarez, which was my
Right.
surprise.
Right, but he's the producer.
Hmm.
So this is him. He still has some leverage with the mouse. Alien Romulus is the upcoming new Alien movie from Disney that nobody wants to see. And while there is plenty of excitement, I'm going to have to press X to down on that. There are also some trepidations, as the House of Mouse's taste on the Xenomorphs is set to explore an aspect of the franchise that Ridley Scott's original 1979 film actively avoided. Alien Romulus from Don't Breathe director Fede Alvarez has reportedly wrapped filming ahead of its 2024 premiere, pushing Disney's 20th Century Studios to share more information about the movie's story. However, the press release gives the franchise fans a reason to concede. It doesn't seem like Disney's entry is interested in echoing Ridley Scott's classic movie. Aside from James Cameron's 1986 sequel Aliens, the franchise has seen more than its fair share of box office bombs. Yes, because it is not a franchise. And critical disappointments. From the action-packed crossovers with the Predator series, which were actually okay, not great, to more esoteric prequels centering on Android, a number of the movies in the Alien franchise have notoriously missed the mark. Audiences have been treated to another xenomorph encounter on the big screen since the release of the much maligned Alien Covenant in 2017. And they might not miss the franchise, but if Prey, the latest installment of Alien's sister series Predator, is any indication, taking a well-worn franchise in a completely new direction can be both divisive and incredibly successful. But again, Prey involved a bunch of talented actors, so. Alien Romulus will have young main characters. The new Disney movie is moving away from the Ripley blueprint. It's not a Ripley blueprint, but okay. A press release from Disney's 20th Century Studios shed more light on the plot of the highly anticipated Aliens Romulus. The film is said to follow a group of young people on a distant world who find themselves in a confrontation with the most terrifying life form in the universe. While this focus on young adult characters doesn't come as a huge surprise given the film's casting announcements, the stark departure from the original movie, Ridley Scott's film essentially focused on truckers in space. Ordinary working class people like Sigourney Weaver's Ellen Ripley. I almost said Sigourney Weaver. I don't know why that happened.
That's
who are,
that's the Freudian slip, Larry. That's just you want Sigourney's wiener.
I mean, she might be good cooking hot dogs. I don't know.
I would
who
like
are
beans with frankfurters, ma'am.
who are confronted with extreme.
I'm sorry to tell you, Larry, that in fact Sigourney is the worst.
So while crafting a teens being stalked premise onto a space setting sounds entertaining, no, it doesn't. It also portrays some of the core traits that make the original 1979 film an enduring classic. You mean having good actors with a good repertoire and good CVs of work that you could say, yeah, these people could do something really good with this setting. The apparent slasher in space that is Alien Romulus will feature the subgenre's most essential trope: a group of teens getting picked off one by one. So what? They're making the xenomorph into Jason? Is that what we're seeing?
That's probably what we're saying.
Although Ripley is a kind of horror movie final girl in Alien, the original is that's not what it is. Yeah, no. Film inventively borrows from the horror genre without being solely defined by it. It really wasn't a horror movie.
It was, but the thing is that they've got it backwards. They think it was a science fiction first and a horror second. It was a horror first and a science fiction second.
A different direction doesn't necessarily spell trouble for Disney's new Alien film. In fact, mapping the teen slasher formula onto the series alongside a familiar death-dealing monster can actually reinvigorate the franchise. I'm going to press X to doubt. As it stands, the Alien prequels, which prize philosophical questions above all else, I mean, they didn't, also failed to recapture the original film's magic in leveraging the strengths of action-forward slasher genre and its relatable young cast. Pressing X to doubt that these kids are going to be relatable. Alien Romulus has a chance to break from all the franchise installments, allowing director Fede Alvarez to craft a film that speaks to modern viewers in the same way that Ridley Scott's Alien spoke to moviegoers in the late 70s. I mean, sure,
No.
but it speaks to
doesn't.
people today.
Well,
The original movie speaks to people still today.
we gotta run this along because I have to give some grandpa church advice from my.
I mean, I would love
late
to hear what Grandpa
grandfather.
Church has to say about this.
Well, Grandpa Church is my late grandfather, but he commented on this 20 years ago. Because he was an older gentleman, of course. He had seen the original version of the Nutty Professor.
I've seen that.
Okay, and when they did the re-release of the Nutty Professor with Eddie Murphy, nobody really said a lot at the time, and the internet
Because
wasn't
the original Nutty Professor wasn't very strong movie. Let's be realistic.
Well, let's be also realistic in the sense that they waited 40 years to redo it.
Yeah.
Okay. It's kind of like why people didn't really look at Christopher Nolan's Batman and go, no, it's too soon to do a new Batman, because the last time Batman had been rebooted was with Michael Keaton in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So that was only a 30-year difference.
So wait, you're saying because we had 3 Batmans in 1 year that's too many Batmans?
That's too many Batmans, but that's beside that's a subsect of the original point.
Is that as many as 410s? Because Lex Luthor once stole 40 cakes, and that was terrible.
That is terrible. I think 3 Batmans is worse than 40 cakes, though. But it goes back to something that he said in this interim, and he told me at the young age of 6 or 7 years old when this happened. He said, "Son, this is a sign that Hollywood's out of ideas, and it's only going to get worse from here, because instead of having anything original or new, your generation and your children's generation are just going to get recycled things until they find something that you'll tolerate." And I thought, there's no way that's true. This old man doesn't know what he's talking about. That motherfucker was right dead on the money 40 fucking years ago.
Yeah.
He called this shit.
So another component of this, are you familiar with the origin of the TV show Mission Impossible?
No.
So at the time, before Mission Impossible existed, when it was just an idea being shopped around, something that defined television at that time in the late 50s and mid 60s was family dynamics. Everyone was a family. Mm-hmm. Everyone was a found family.
The found family being a huge thing.
So Dom Toretto was really big on TV then.
Not knowing who that is, I'll take your word for it.
It's about family, Joe.
Oh, no. That's the joke, is that we're getting back to that now, and it shows. Because here was the
Well,
thing.
actually, we've never gone away from that, unfortunately.
No, we did, and that's why I bring up Mission Impossible. Because the basic thesis of Mission Impossible, it's in the setting Bible, was it's going to be a rotating cast rather than a static cast, although we might have return guest characters, right?
Mm.
And everyone is a professional. They are doing a job. They are not a family. They are not romantically inclined. We're not going to do romance stories. These are spy dramas. This is dramatic storytelling where the crux is the success or failure of the mission. Right? And Mission Impossible was fantastically successful because it was different at a time when everything was the same.
So you're saying the found family as a central aspect of postmodern storytelling needs to die?
I'm saying that it has a shelf life and that it has come in and out of vogue, and it's about time it go away again.
Mm.
Because here's the thing: when you look at Alien, the original Alien, right? They are not wrong in describing the structure. It is indeed a slasher movie in space, just like Predator is a slasher movie in the jungle, right? But they are wrong in that they've misunderstood the character dynamics at play. Ripley is not a final girl because it's not a film like that. This is not a found family. These are co-workers. They might be co-workers who are friends, they might be co-workers who know each other, but the fact of the matter is that they are bound together by the job. Many of them hate the job.
Yeah,
Much of the
less Full House, more Among Us.
right. The constant conversation is the company is trying to screw us. And talking about the bottom line. And the primary thesis of the film, what actually gets going, is not, okay, we're under attack, we've got to work together to fight the Jason Voorhees. It's, aw shit, where did my coworker go? He's fucking drunk again, isn't he? When I find his ass, I'm gonna kick it. And then once they discover that they've got an alien on board, once shit gets weirder and more dangerous, and people really start dying, it's not quite every man for themselves, but it's very much a, look, man, I can't fucking help you. I can't fucking help myself. We're all gonna die up here if we don't do something.
Indeed. It's a lot of.
Within 2 weeks, there will be major cities quarantined in a giant biological warfare drill.
Exactly. But the succinct thing is that what this created was a feeling of isolation. All the characters are alone. You see that again in The Thing, where nobody is friends and everybody is co-workers, and that some of them don't even like each other by default.
Well,
right?
Joe, what you're describing, we've already gotten, and we've gotten it in spades and done well, and it was the Chronicles of Riddick. At least the first movie, Pitch Black.
Right. And Pitch Black was
Mhm.
amazing enough to spawn sequels.
Terrible sequels, but yes.
Nah. Chronicles of Riddick was good. The first sequel was
You
good.
keep what you kill. Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself.
Hey,
We
it
all
was
saw that shit coming.
no. It was pronouncedly better than the movie Riddick. Which was, what if we did Pitch Black again, but not as good? You and I can have that argument later. What I'm getting at is that everything in the original Alien was done in service to creating the atmosphere of isolation and danger, and then you had the slasher component, right? What are they possibly going to do with kids on a faraway colony are hunted by an alien, or kids on a faraway spaceship are hunted by an alien? It's going to be the final girl, the quarterback, the two that are having sex, the naysayer. We know these archetypes. We know why these don't work. We mock them because they're worthy of mockery. And then you're doing it in an Aliens movie. The alien is not Jason Voorhees. It's not Mike Myers. or Michael Myers, the case may be. It might be Mike Myers. Can,
I mean,
that may be his preferred name.
yeah. Can we get Mike Myers to play the alien, kind of Cat in the Hat like in an Aliens movie? But I'm just saying that it's looking at all the superficial material and then fundamentally misunderstanding how it's used. And then thinking, well, it'd be good because it's the same slop everything else is. It's like, yeah, but what you're actually looking at is a missed opportunity. Because I don't have a problem with young people in space. If you said, okay, we're doing a story about young people in space, right, on a colony, it's a company colony, which means they, even if they don't work for the company, their parents do. So they kind of belong to the company. And it fucking sucks.
Mhm.
And then you release an alien onto the
You
corporate
know,
structure, and all the
they did
parents
this with the
die.
Resident Evil thing on Netflix.
I
I
didn't
don't
watch
ever
Resident
want
Evil thing on
another
Netflix.
piece of on-screen Resident Evil media for as long as I live.
No one does. But if you release the alien and like the adults die, and now the kids have to like figure out what the fuck to do, right? And you actually play with the idea of fear and isolation for young people in the worst possible situation, and you don't fall into the tropes. Oh, it could be great. It could be amazing. Could totally rock it. But it's like, no, we would much rather put out more atmospheric A24 pictures that don't actually have scares in them, because the jump scares good enough.
I mean, jump scares keep working. People keep buying into it.
People keep buying, but I don't think they're working. It's actually among the basic rules of design we came up with on the game we're working on was not no jump scares, but minimal jump scares. Because Five Nights at Freddy's jumps are lazy and do not build tension.
So I have an interesting thing to kind of chase the end of the show with.
Okay.
I saw this and I thought this is a neat idea that I might want to share and talk with my friends Joe and Church.
I mean, I can also talk about basic life skills if you want to hear me complain about food.
Did I not? What's going on here? Let's go ahead and do it this way. Where you being a pain in the behind? Okay, fine. You're being a pain in the behind, so I'm gonna have to do it this way. Pull up a different way because you're.
Oh God, I can see forever.
All right. So here is a thing that a Twitter account, Jeff's Comics, posted. The Generation Gap Illustrated. The 1970s had both a gender and generation gap in pop culture. The use of DC's Justice Societies having older heroes was delightful and well remembered. Evidence, perhaps we should let our heroes and our villains age. So I wanted to propose this question to you. Do you think that we should return to a version of the multiverse where we have older versions of the characters in one section and younger versions in another? And we should give them opportunities to tell different and compelling stories for their characters?
I mean, Church is going to have very interesting things to say about this when Church is back from fetching nicotine. He's going to be back in 20 years, I'm sure. But where normally I'd be like, yeah, no, more ideas is better, I'm actually going to say no. I'm going to say that the multiverse as a concept is burned. It's not dead. I don't think multiverse is bad, but I think multiverses need time to fallow.
Or
right?
You need to not have lazy writers.
Right. And that's the thing, is that when we get to, well, what would the story be? It would be the old versions of the characters alongside the young versions of the same characters. Because they would say, well, what if we have old Batman and young Batman and they work together? Very much like what we saw in Marvel. You have Wolverine, you have Old Man Logan, you have X-23, you have little girl X-23, and you have the Wolverine that is a literal Wolverine, but it's a Wolverine, all in an apartment building when a bunch of bad guys decide to break in and try to rob them. And it's like, well, I get the joke. Is son, you just went into the worst house. At the same time, 5 Wolverines is retarded, right?
Mhm.
Even if
They
you
were
put
able
in
to pull off X-23 once, but they weren't able to do anything interesting with her.
even if you put in the strict rule of keeping the two worlds apart, and and you have your two uh justice societies and your Justice League operating independently with their own stories and their own adventures, which is fine. What you get is split fan base.
I'm back.
You won't actually get people read both. You'll get people read one or the other as is their preference, which should be fine for the bottom line. The company shouldn't care what sells as long as they get the money, right? But then where do you go? And that's the thing is I
Mhm.
don't think there's much further to go once you go, well, now our characters are old.
Mm.
Because the natural next question is, do we let them die? And if you let them die, then when do we bring them back? You're just doing the same problem with extra steps.
All right. Is
Okay.
that all you? Is that your take, Joe?
That is
I
that
don't
is
want
my
to.
sum. Yeah, that's my
Okay,
summation. And you're back from the store 20 years later.
I am, and I heard everything that was said, and you're
Oh, good.
both approaching it with the wrong idea. See,
Well,
what?
no, I'm
See,
more I'm
no,
more
no, no.
hanging this provocative question out there.
Well, yeah, but you use terminology that shouldn't be used in this conversation. See, we're approaching this with the idea that there has to be a multiverse where these characters interact with one another at some point in some form or fashion, whether it just be
Uh,
simultaneously
oh, no,
existing.
no,
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 no.
hold on.
I'm
Let me. God damn it.
okay. Okay.
So, and that's the concept of the multiverse is that if these characters do exist side by side, if there is an Earth 2, so to speak, then we have to acknowledge that there's the potential for Earth 1 and Earth 2 to interact. Why not go
Mm.
back to pre-crisis storytelling arcs and say, okay, we can have old Superman stories in, Tales from the Man of Steel, and we can also have young Superman stories
Mm.
in Action Comics, and we can
Mm.
also have stories where Superman has given up his powers to raise a family in Smallville. We can have all of these stories and they can all exist simultaneously if we just give up the fucking notion that there has to be a multiverse in the goddamn first place.
Well, no, I'm not saying that there has to be a multiverse. I'm saying that that is a way to manage this because
It
let
doesn't need to be managed in that sense. We have things called Elseworlds. We have things called What If. We have things called 6-issue miniseries that are not canon, like The Dark Knight
mm,
Returns.
mm. Well,
Uh,
here's the thing, Church. Every so often you have to do one of these crossovers because it makes money.
No, no, no. You don't have to. What happens is every so often editors say, "Oh, well, you're one of our more talented authors, and you get to do whatever you want to because we love you and your stuff sells." And they don't rein that author in from saying, "Well, I'm going to bring in Green Lantern from Golden Age, and I'm going to put him beside Green Lantern from Silver Age and from the Bronze Age, and we're going to see what happens." Fuck you! You don't get to do that. Those are toys out of different toy boxes. Play within the goddamn realm you've been given.
Right. But you see, here's the thing. Whenever they did that, they sold. They made money.
I understand that, but they
But if you
also
do it
wrote
too
themselves.
often,
They
it
wrote
doesn't work.
themselves into a box where that they. Okay, so I like to imagine comic book eras as boxes of toys.
Mm,
Okay, we've
mm,
had that conversation before. So you've got
mm,
Alan Scott Green Lantern alongside basically Adam West Batman and
mm, mm, mm,
fucking gray tipped Superman, and you've
mm,
got these
mm.
these Diana Prince from
Yeah,
Themyscira, the
yeah, yeah.
original Wonder Woman. Um,
And
you've
you
got
have
all
Alan
of these
Scott
characters,
trolling out for gay
and
prostitutes.
yeah, and you've got the Justice Society of America over here. At no point does that Justice Society of America ever have to interact with the Justice League of America or the Justice Society of America or whatever over here in, cartoon land. We don't have to
Correct.
acknowledge that all of these things, but when you dump all the toys from all the boxes into one big chest, then you kind of lose what made each individual box special.
Right. But to use a pro wrestling analogy, there's a term professional wrestlers used to use. It doesn't really make sense in the way the business works now, but it's called, why are you giving the match away for free?
Right.
There are
What
matches you should have on a pay-per-view that you just put out there.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, you keep bringing these crossovers there, but there is money to be made when you put a crossover, so long as you're not giving it away for free.
Well, see, here's the thing, Larry. Marvel had that. For the longest time, they had that. They've forgotten what that is. You know what it used to be called?
An editor?
What
and
if?
A publisher? Well, no.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about that.
DC also had it with Elseworlds.
No, I'm not talking about that because hold up, they had a crossover in mainstream Marvel continuity with the original Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right, but here's what I'm getting at. Okay? What Church is saying is that when you take the toys, you dump them all in the same chest, you lose something because now they're all mixed together. He is more or less right. There's varying degrees of situation that make it different, right? But Elseworlds were long-running comic books that did not fit in DC's main thing. Right? That's not the same. Those are off-brand. That's like Diet DC. I'm not saying it's bad, though. We love our Diet DC. What Ifs were standalones. They were not supposed to be multi-issue.
I understand all of that.
That means What If is your pay-per-view event. One night only. One time only.
No.
Spider-Man versus Spider-Man in the ring.
No, because nobody's going to be interested in that.
But they were. They were for years.
But those were never best sellings. Those were never best sellers. Versus when the Golden... No. Not compared to like when the first time they had Golden Age Flash show up with Silver Age Flash. They didn't do the same business. They weren't in the same leagues of business. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying if you do it judiciously and auspiciously, it'll work. It's not you do it for your yearly event. You don't do it for a bi-yearly event. You do it every 3 to 5 years. You bring those characters together for a 1 or 2 issue story. And then they go their separate ways. Because that worked. That used to work out very well for Doctor Who.
Okay, but the thing is they still did those. They did those between Marvel and DC all throughout the 80s and the 90s, and they sold gangbusters, but they still weren't canon.
Actually, no. They were canon.
No, they weren't.
There were things from the JLA Avengers stuff that impacted the characters going forward.
That was the 90s you're talking about, though. I'm talking about the 80s. See, that's what I'm talking about. Back in the 80s, Batman and the Hulk met up.
I remember that. I actually read the Spider-Man Superman one.
Right, but they had no idea who the fuck was who when they met later on in the Amalgam comics, which became canon. So what I'm saying is we've had stories before. Batman and Spawn fought. Batman doesn't know who the fuck Spawn is.
Batman's fought the Predators.
Right.
Superman has fought the Xenomorphs.
But that's what I'm getting at. We've had these things all throughout history without the need of a multiverse.
But, and I'm not saying you need the multiverse for doing this. I'm talking about curated separate streams. But also on the flip side, Porky Pig crossed over with Batman, and it's still affecting Batman continuity.
Yeah, that's not good.
Well, no, it actually is good. It's set up a whole lot of new locations and a whole lot of new characters.
I disagree for the same reason that I will never agree that the Watchmen interacting with mainline DC was a good idea.
No, I agree with you on that one not being a good idea.
Well, you can't have one without the other, though.
No.
Because they're just as absurd to me.
No, because Porky Pig was an actual pig in the Batman crossover.
He was?
He was not a pig.
Oh, well then that Barry, you're being difficult. Anyway, make
But
your point.
my point is that these curated streams of content for old heads, content for new heads, I think are good. And I think you bring those contents together strategically to build up interest, build up curiosity, because quite honestly, I don't know how they're going to do events because everybody's been exposed to how the events are fake.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We don't have to. That's what I've been getting at this whole time. What we've done is we've
Mhm.
written, like, as consumers, and not us personally, but we as consumers have allowed Marvel to write themselves into a corner, and now there's nothing that can be done except for more of what's already been done.
I mean, that's not what's the problem is at Marvel. The problem is that none of the people at Marvel know how to do anything different. And they're afraid to do anything different because they're afraid to say that previous Marvel editors were dumb.
Well, I do feel that I need to present a middle ground argument because I think you both have some good points here. If you guys are not familiar, Warhammer 40k has an extensive lore, which we're not going to get
Very
into the
extensive.
particulars.
Yes.
Some years ago, the guys at Games Workshop decided to do what they thought was a good idea at the time. They said, "Okay, guys, we're going to have a big event at a convention play level, and the results of that convention will be the official results of this event." Okay, and they allowed it to happen, and they went in assuming that Space Marines would win, that the Imperium would win. The fact of the
Absolutely
matter
they
is,
would not.
not only did they not win, but
They were barely represented, I'm assuming.
oh no, it's worse than that. You see, the thing was is that the people who were buying Space Marines and who had all the newest, most recent books and all the most recent mechanics were people with more money than brains who were not good at the table, right? Your guys running Chaos Space Marines, on the other hand, who won handily, right? They might have been using older codexes and they might have been fighting behind the 8 ball, but they were real good at using what they had, and they kicked the shit out of the Imperium. So Games Workshop, after the fact, undid the results. They said, "Oh no, it happened, but it didn't happen," and then said they would never again do that sort of thing. Now that's not so bad in and of itself. That's just regular company skis. Games Workshop is known to be skeezy, right? But then they hired on a guy named Matt Ward to write new lore, new stories, new stuff. And it was so bad, it was so awful, it was so mocked that he was very quickly swept under the rug and not stated. But rather than disavow his content, his retcons, they instead built on them. And then they made more lore and more lore. And now you have the current lore, which is ass. And everybody hates it who is an old school 40k player. But it's inescapable because the general argument, an argument we have had on this show about canon, right, is, well, just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's not canon. It's canon now. You just got to live with it.
Well,
There is something to be said for the quality of the work. It is 100% true that if the quality of the work being made is subpar, as a modern Marvel would make it, then it is bad. But it is also the work that's coming out right now. So it's the work we have. When we talk about Marvel writing themselves into a corner, it's true. But then we say, well, why don't you do something new? It is also true. The people that we're asking to make something new, they're not just people who can't. They're people who won't. Because what they would make new would be, what if Hulk was She-Hulk and watched sad YouTube videos about cooking videos because she has trauma? And we all go, that's not the Hulk we want. And they said, well, do you want to go back to the corner? Because this is what you're getting.
Well, the point that I'm getting at though is if you finally do a fan service and you get rid of the idea that we have to constantly have a multiverse, that every character has to know about every other character. If we can get back to just putting out quality comic books for the sake of putting out quality comic books, you get back to a mindset that people in the 80s or the 70s and 80s had before Crisis on Infinite Earth, before Secret Wars. You get back to a point where comic book people had that. You get back to a point pre Disney owning Star Wars where if you liked something you read in the books and you wanted to apply it to your movie canon, you could. You get back to a pre, crafted 40K where whatever you wanted to, make into your game, you could. Same thing with D&D, same thing with everything that has had a corporate leash
You know,
choked around its neck. You get back to an idea where the fan has control of what they quote unquote consider canon,
you
as
know,
opposed to such a need for Daddy Wizards of the Coast or Daddy Marvel or Daddy Star Wars to tell me what I'm supposed to believe.
well, A, you could still do that now. But
You can.
B more importantly than A, however, you remember what would happen if Muhammad Ali in his prime fought Mike Tyson in his prime?
Um,
You're always gonna have that sort of hunger in the fandom. So you're going to want to create structures where people can engage with the content.
Absolutely, but you don't have to look at them afterwards and say, "Well, this is the way it is now forever."
Right, but that's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about a way to curate the content so when you can actually do something that's good for business, you can pull stuff off the shelf.
I don't think in our current environment that you can do that without maintaining the cycle that we're currently going through. Like I don't think you can get rid of multiverses and curate to the fandom that what first off, what fandom? How many comics are being sold right now? Like back in you pull up some numbers here.
Well,
So hold on. Let me just pull
the
up.
business model for the comic book companies is not based around selling.
All right. Well, the number one Marvel comic book for let's see, 1982.
Mm,
It looks like X-Men sold about 400,000 total copies
mm.
of one of their issues. Hold on. Is this? Let me look at 89. Yeah. So established titles are ones that had 20 or more issues. Blah, 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 first group. All right. Titles are listed from highest sellers to lowest. So you're looking at interesting. Hold up. This doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make sense.
There had to be more. Like this has to be just like average of that comic sales throughout that year. This is saying 400,000 for X-Men, and I'm sure that was just like one issue, right?
Yes.
Okay. But it's saying for a whole year, so
That's
um
probably the average.
comic sales X-Men 2023. Oh yeah, you're not getting top 50 comics by unit, but it's not telling you how many units sold. That's funny. I'm trying to find something to make a point, but what I'm getting
Mm.
at is I doubt very seriously there's a single X-Men comic in 2023 that sold more than 100,000 issues.
Church, I'll do you one better. I doubt there's been a single X-Men comic in 2023 that sold more than 50,000 issues.
Right. So, I mean,
But my
who are
point
we
is,
doing? Like, who are we maintaining the status quo for?
well, I'm not saying maintain the status quo. I'm saying have curated streams so that you could sell content to people who want it.
Well, here's the thing that I don't understand, Larry. Like, you're talking about satisfying an audience. There's no audience to satisfy right now.
Well,
So
no,
you
no.
really,
My argument is that the audience to satisfy is the audience that is not buying comics right now.
but we don't know what to do to make them buy comics again, though.
Right, and
I don't think course correction is it. So I mean, we've
I'm
got
not
to.
saying it's. I'm not, and I'm not even saying course correction. I'm saying what you do is you sell them the kind of comics you know they like to buy.
Well, the one
Where
thing
do
I
you
can
get
say
that
about
information from, though? It's been so long.
the
I don't think. I think it's pretty clear because you could do market research with things like Twitter.
the
You
one
could do
thing that
market research with all this online activity like what we're doing right now on this show.
the one thing that I can say about this is that given recent events like with Dixon and July and EVS, I don't think indies know how to do it either. I think the indies are currently, sadly, trying very hard to replicate the big ones to replace them when they fall, and will more or less set themselves up for the same failure, possibly much more quickly. Um, Only the people that are really dedicated to the craft and are focusing on making a good book in the way that their smaller base wants, like John and Rick Piper in Matter of Point, are really going to do well. And Wolfsbane Comics and Dario and the like, uh, people that aren't making big waves in the scene, not because they aren't doing things, but because they're focusing on their books. They're focusing on what matters and not focusing on the drama. Also, as we reach the 2 hour mark, I have presented an interesting image for you guys. I believe it to be accurate.
When guys become dads, they're sort of in one of these four houses like Harry Potter. Milwaukee is the only correct answer.
Unfortunately, I inherited my father's DeWalt.
DeWalt's the second best answer. Is kind of like the Ravenclaw.
Now here's the thing. Here's the thing. What DeWalt has is it has a better battery.
That's not true anymore. It was true like 5 years ago. They're about equal now.
Well,
I mean, I
what
haven't
house
bought
were
one
you sorted
in 5
into,
years.
Larry?
DeWalt, because that's what I have in the house.
Oh, excellent. So now we need to remember this image, and we need to quiz Ayrton when he returns from his potato and go, Ayrton.
Ayrton's definitely Makita.
So
because that's what was on sale at the gas station next to the smoke shop.
Well, because I have to ask Sam for a question. I've never actually heard of Makita, and I've never heard of Ryobi either.
Ryobi is like the bastard child of DeWalt and Lowe's. Like DeWalt got jammed into a crevice at Lowe's, and Ryobi is what popped out.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, it's the same design, just done poorly. And it's like It's like the great value of tools.
So let's see. Let's go over this real quick. So subjects on our show: comic books, movies, fine alcohol and cigars,
Books sometimes.
power tools, and food and racism.
But we're only making fun of racism.
Right. But I mean, it is we have a segment called Racism Time. We do not have a segment called Power Tool Hour.
I mean,
there's a bundle of BioShock games available on the Switch that I definitely don't need that I'm probably going to buy.
But I have been actively avoiding the latest Eric July drama.
What is it?
He and Ethan Van Sciver have been playing mean girl games with each other.
I mean,
They're
it's about that time.
they're slap fighting for who's the big kid in the playground, and the actual answer is no one gives a shit because no one gives a shit.
Also, a lot of people are going, well, wait a minute, Eric. You're saying you're all against this culture war stuff, but you hire a bunch of left-wing culture war activists to help you run your company. What's up with that?
Well, I saw a post that pointed.
You thought I was going to be genuine?
Well, I saw a post that somebody pointed out that Eric July used to be left, then he found out a bunch of stuff and became ANCAP, and in the back of my brain went, oh, that's why he sounds like an idiot.
Well, no, he sounds like an idiot because he had breakfast this morning. We clocked in.
I mean, Larry, can you imagine not having breakfast this morning?
But I had breakfast this morning, Joe. It was grits and eggs and sausage. It was delicious.
I didn't have breakfast this morning, guys.
But no. The thing is I've had a roommate who was ANCAP. I've listened to the ANCAP rant about how unfair the world is and how everything would be better if we were just ANCAP. And it's like, right, all of this makes sense now because it's another branch of another style of another kind of person who wants all the benefits of capitalism, but wants to dress in the clothing and the regalia of not being capitalist, bro. Totally for real. I'm more authentic than thou. And it's like, that's dumb. And it shouldn't reflect on your book. Your book should stand alone for quality. Unfortunately,
Like
I don't believe ISIM stands for quality. I believe ISIM stands for lazy art and worse storytelling.
Well, gang, we've done our 2 hours and some change of time, so I think we should say goodnight to the people.
By the way, are we gearing up for your Vero when that drops? We're going to check that out too.
Check that out when it drops? Yaira?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Unless somebody out there in our audience pays for me to suffer for my art.
You mean pays for it by getting it for you and then handing it to us and making us read it?
Yes. Or if a copy magically appears at my home.
What's the name of this again?
Yaira.
The fuck is that?
That's the third comic in the Rippaverse.
Right. It's Isom, Alpha Core, and Yaira.
And then there's Gooding. That'll be the fourth one.
God, that book looks so bad.
And then there's going to be the one about the witch lady. That'll be number 5.
I am just mentally taken back to my friend Wolfgar talking about how, well, Joe, you can't judge it by one book. It's when Marvel started, it didn't look like it was going to be that great. It's like, no, man, you don't understand. I have seen what they're putting out. I've seen the future, and it's bad.
Well, I'm gonna pull the good night everybody card. So good night everybody.
Well, this
good night everybody.
Church minute.
I mean, Church, you got anything you want to say to push